We are coming today with two options. Option number one, which is developing both sites, parking garage 4 and parking garage 1, through the vertical condominium process, and option number 2, which is allowing the developer to use site number 4 across from Publix, and then constructing a parking garage on a 750-car parking garage on site number 1. Both proposals have no involvement with the city financially, and our economic development assistant director Leonard Roberts has all the particulars of each type of project. However, what we're looking at is trying to see if we can move forward with one of these two options. There are a number of challenges in each option that we have to deal with, but we haven't gotten into the weeds yet unless one of the options is something that the commission can live with. So with that, I'll turn it over to Leonard Roberts.
So Leonard Roberts, the Economic Development Assistant Director, and I do apologize, I'm having some technical difficulty, but each of you do have a PowerPoint presentation, I believe. Mm-hmm. So just to kind of, if you want to walk through with your printouts, on page 1 is just a title. Page 2 is the subject properties, is a map of the subject properties. Are you guys all following? Great. So in this PowerPoint presentation, the page 3 shows garage 4 having 345 existing spaces and garage 1 having 282 existing spaces. On your page 4 slide, we show option 1, including a office tower on garage 1 site.
I'm sorry, but I don't have the...
It's not in front of you. Leonard, can you also provide me with how many permit parkers there are? Yes. On both garages, garage 4 and garage 1?
Let me see the front. Leonard, sorry, I have a different.
That's correct.
Yeah, he's missing
different than
one
what he
slide.
has. And you just said page 4 was option 1?
He's got it in the back.
No, but my page 4 is option 2, so I'm just.
Commissioner, take one.
Thank you.
I'm good. Mr. Mayor,
He's working on it.
Thank you. We can't get it on?
Yeah, we're having technical difficulty with not sure what's going on.
You wanna maybe like wait 2 minutes and then we can have it up on the screen?
Is that okay?
Okay, no worries, no problem. I just thought maybe for the people who are viewing.
So under the scenarios that are going to be presented are their option 1, which includes a office tower on the garage 1 site, which is a site across from Actors Playhouse, and on the garage 4 site across from Publix would be a residential tower. On their option 2 proposal, the garage 1 site would have a city-owned public parking garage structure and a residential tower on the garage 4 site. Next slide, the title says option 1, G1 office. Are we there? You got it? The office building would have 7 floors of office, which is 117,000 square feet. We'd have 7 floors of garage and 1 floor of ground floor retail. That would consist of 390 private parking spaces and 390 parking spaces and 395 public parking spaces. Under that same scenario, on the G4 site, we would have a residential tower with 12 floors of residential units, approximately 295 residential units. We'd have 4 floors of garage, which is 501 private parking spaces and 225 public parking spaces, and ground floor retail. So that would be the option 1 scenario where we have an office and a residential tower. Got it? The option 2, where we'd have the public parking garage structure, approximately 9 floors of 750. Okay. We'd have 9 floors of public parking, and that is based upon a 5-foot encroachment into the alley. The developer does note that if they were to have a wider access up to 22 additional feet, they can bring that 9 floors down to 7 floors. The residential tower, oh, here we go. The residential tower would have 12 floors of residential units, approximately 324 units. And just so you guys know, it is up on the screen right now. And
Not
I do
up on the screen. It's up on that one, but not on that one.
There's not one.
the 3 floors of parking, 1 floor of the ground floor of retail, approximately 15,000 square feet of retail. Now, what does this look like, the big picture? What this commission has iterated in the past is that there are 4 things of concern: the number of parking spaces, the size of the project, the ownership structure, and how it's being financed. So based upon
Leonard, excuse me, can you go back to option 1 just to show the commission the option 1 buildings? Yes.
Yeah, so option 1, if you can see it now on the screen, I do apologize for that delay. You have 7 floors of the office tower, 7 floors of parking, 1 floor of ground floor retail. And if you look on the right side, you see approximately 117,000 square feet of office component. And the parking would be the city and the actual developers' parking combined. And that's 390 of their spaces and 395 of city-owned spaces. In that residential tower, across from Publix, you'd have 12 floors of actual residential units, or 295 units, 4 floors of parking, which would consist of 501 spaces of the private developers' parking needs and 225 of the public parking needs, and ground floor retail. Under the option 2 scenario, we have the public garage that is all city use with ground floor retail, 750 spaces. This model right here takes into consideration a 5-foot encroachment into the alley. And so that's why it's 9 floors. And again, the developer believes that the size of this project could come down 2 floors if it was wider. And then the residential tower is 324 units. Still 12 floors of residential units, 3 floors versus the 4 floors originally of parking, and 1 floor of ground floor retail. Now, in summary, what does this look like? To reflect the concerns of the commission in the past, we're going to talk about parking. Under the option 1 scenario, the developer is providing 620 public parking spaces. We have 626 parking spaces today. The developer has talked to us related to finding a solution for permit parking up to 120 parking spaces. And per discussion with Kevin, our parking director, if we can alleviate some of that permit parking pressure, that would meet his demand that he needs. So the developer and us have discussed potential solutions related to that. The option 2 scenario in the space is 750 spaces that the city had requested. And at nighttime, I'm sorry, going back to option 1, it would provide 1,000 parking spaces at nighttime. Now, the FAR concern that the commission has expressed, the FAR in this project under option 1 scenario with a residential and office tower would be 5.06 combined. And I'll get into the breakout of that in a minute. We have under option 2, we'd have 4.89. And what does that look in square footage? It's approximately 538,000 square feet. Now, that is going to include a component on Miracle Mile of retail. So it's 534,000 square foot and change, but roughly about 4,000 to 5,000 square feet would be on Miracle Mile. And under option 2, the developer would like 452,000 square feet because there is on his project on the residential tower, but because the parking building requires ground floor retail, we'd have to include ground floor retail in the approximately 17,000 square feet. So that total size is 469,000 square feet. So we've talked about the parking, about the size. Now the ownership structure on this is under option 1 is what they refer to as a vertical subdivision. A vertical subdivision is somewhat similar to a condominium in where the developer would own the use, in the case of the office tower, they would own the office piece, they would, and then the parking would be owned by the city's portion of the parking. And that was referred to as a vertical subdivision. So just for argument's sake, it's consider it like a condominium structure. Under the option 2, that would not be the case. The city would have ownership of the Garage 1 site, and the developer would have ownership of the Garage 4 site. Financing. Under both of these scenarios, the developer would be funding the construction of the parking piece. Under the option 1, there would be all that would be available to the city would be the actual parking, and there would be no cost to the city related to that. The developer would acquire the paseos. They would own the paseos. They would own the paseos. Garage 1 and 2, that public parking would be paid for 100%. Under option 2, same scenario where the developer would be paying for all 750 parking spaces. The city would contribute towards a retail ground floor development. And so, for the most part, these projects are being paid for by the developer. Now to look at what the FAR looks like, broken out. Under the RFP does allow the use of FAR between sites. And so what we've done based on that RFP is that we've actually included what the weighted FAR looks like. And the number you saw on the previous slide, a 5.06 FAR, how that works out is broken out here. We have G1 of roughly 3.63, G4 of 7.39, the paseos, because we're allowing them to use the development rights attached to the paseos, 0.36. And there's a parcel that's used for an alley, but it's an individual parcel. It's not an alley. And so that square footage attached to that, we're allowing to use. And that's how we get down to a 5.06 under option 1. Under option 2, for just that residential tower and the ground floor retail, we have 0.49 under the Garage 1. That's the 17,000 square feet of ground floor retail. And the residential tower would have 452,000 square feet. A portion of that, I think it's a smaller portion, I think 15,000 or less, is the ground floor retail, and the remainder would be the residential. So that gets us to a 4.89 FAR. So these are the two options that were proposed by the developer that we felt worked related to the city not coming out of pocket. The other proposals included the city having a contribution. And so right now, I'd like to take an opportunity to get questions from the commission.
One of the questions I had was why I think I know the answer, but just to be clear, the FAR numbers that you just showed, and I guess wherever there's a difference in, or the prior ones, wherever there's a difference in there, a difference in square footage, the difference is just the retail in the garage, basically? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, so the developer is proposing 452,000, but they're building us a public garage structure on the Garage 1 site. It requires ground floor retail. That would be owned by the city, so that wouldn't be the development rights that they're asking for. It'll be the development rights that the city would own and be part of their project. But because it is part of the project, we have to include it in the calculation of FAR.
And but that applies to both options 1 and 2, right?
No, under 1, they would own the ground floor retail, so on both sides.
No, because there's a small difference in those, in your option 1 numbers and their option 1 numbers. Not a big deal, but
At some point, it's going to come before us.
5 even, you're at 5.06, they're at 534, I think you're at 539 on option
Yeah,
1.
I'd be more than happy to go through it with the developer, but I mean, these numbers are broken out based on the square footage provided by the property appraiser's website.
Okay.
And if they have a survey, maybe that might have skewed the numbers.
Okay. From them? Oh.
It's,
I don't know if they had something to say, or,
If it please the Commission, Anthony DiUri at 1450 Brickell Avenue. You have before you, and we've been working with staff to put forth 2 scenarios at the direction of the Commission from the last workshop where the city would not come out of pocket and not have to finance anything, where we would develop the entire project for you. And so we provided 2 scenarios, one with the office tower, which are these 2 placemats here. And so on one side, you'll see all the economic benefits of and cash flows from the particular proposal. And if you look at the one with the office tower and the residential tower on it, that is the preferred scenario, the developer that we have been working with staff diligently on. And I think that the biggest change has been that we found a solution for the parking by pushing as many spaces as possible in the G1, where we have 400 spaces in G1, and then coming up with replacing with a fresh set of parking garages, exactly the number the city has today, in a more efficient mix, because again, we're moving more to G1. And then we have identified the permit parkers in G1 as the solution that we need to bring to bear between the developer and the city in order to accommodate that, to get the additional 1,000 spaces at night. So I think that's the biggest difference in what you've seen previously. We got our parking count from 577 to 620, and then we identified the permit parkers in G1 and a potential solution for that, so we can have this solution supported here today for the 1,000 at night, which gives you an extra 250 in the evening when your garages are shutting down, and then a brand new 620 with a much better mix in G1. The numbers that the developer's expending become the issue at heart of the matter because of the amount of parking that we need. We're looking at actual capital outlays to the benefit of the city between the paseos and the alleyways and demolition and actual parking spaces of close to $35 million. Cash flows from the properties over 30 years, and I'll leave it to Leonard. I know that you were massaging some of these numbers until the last moment. I believe that parking space revenue is actually higher from the city's standpoint. We were a little more conservative. And then the real estate taxes might be a little lower from the city side, but you're going to see a number north of $100 million from the project over 30 years. And the economic benefit of the office is substantial because we're going to have a corporate tenant, and the real issue that we have before us today is to try to nail down one of these 2 options. And if option 1 is something the staff can support, recommend to the commission, and the commission says on the 25th, we will approve a term sheet subject to conditions that we can incorporate, then we can go to our anchor tenant and we can move forward with the office option. If it's the commission's pleasure not to move forward with the office, obviously it's a completely different calculus. But the real pressure is, if we can deliver a term sheet subject to the conditions that would be to the satisfaction of the city on option 1, then we have our anchor tenant locked in. And the beauty of the anchor tenant is local, but servicing globally their entire footprint. So they're going to get locally their services here for accounting, law, et cetera, et cetera. It's about 525 employees in the office building, and we conservatively estimate that the $27 million is the on-site earnings that you're going to see out of these employees. These are by our third-party consultant that we hired from the original RFP submission, Florida Economic Advisors. Again, we believe that working with staff, we found the solution to option one so that we can maintain that office tower. And we put it forth. Again, it's a term sheet that would allow us to move forward to a development agreement, at which time, obviously, we condition it as the city would like before we move forward with the actual development agreement.
I would like to add that from reviewing this project and then looking at what, we have the city's FAR, what med bonus is 3.5. When you take the request for 750 parking spaces, we look at our consultants' cost for construction, and the city's request, we need a Paseo. There are components within this that are unique, joint ownership, and the contingencies of requiring the developer to phase the construction. Those are all pieces of the pie that kind of add to it. And so when you add it all together, at 3.5 FAR, if we've revalued the project and value what the actual cost to construct, you couldn't do it at 3.5 FAR. It wouldn't make financial sense for the developer. So we have determined that in the equation. Now, there are things we can do in the past that we've discussed, but the objective of this commission, if my understanding, was originally to ensure a deal that does not have the city come out of pocket, and this is a structure they've created that the city does not come out of pocket.
And am I correct? You mentioned yesterday that, and they're here, but finance has been pretty clear that they'd rather, obviously, not a scenario where we take on any debt to try to do a garage here?
Yes, I met with the finance director, and she is not, she has issues with taking on additional debt right now because of all the projects we have and all the expenditures we have.
I noticed, Leonard, I'm sorry, it's related to my prior question, but on option 2, you have a 489 FAR, and on this sheet, it's a 425.
It's the 17,000 in retail. We did not have that as part of our development program. That was something that, and I will concede, not concede, but we agree from the standpoint of the code that, you need some liner in there. But there also have been accommodations in the past, I believe in Merrick Manor, for example, when the police is going to have a substation in that facility. The city component of the project wasn't counted towards FAR. So if in fact the city wants that square footage built there, we're not proposing it as part of our project, and it would be something that the city would retain ownership of. And it's cleaner. The city would have ownership of G1, we would have ownership of G4. In the option 1 where we build both towers, the city would maintain control of both sites through the vertical subdivision. You would maintain ownership of the ground, you would maintain ownership of your garage portion, and we would only have ownership of our garage portion. And so in the future, if we wanted to revert this to a separate use, we would have to come back to the city hat in hand on both of these properties. In option 2, where the city keeps garage 1 and we take garage 4, we can do whatever we want with garage 4 in the future, and so the city doesn't have the same level of control. I know it's a different structure, but you would only have control of garage 1 in that example. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
But I'd like to express my opinion before I do that, and I congratulate you for bending over backwards to meet all of our objections, and this has gone through many different iterations, but we think now we have 2 very viable options. It is a very important project for us. It's smack in the middle of our downtown, not only an office downtown, but a commercial downtown. We spent millions of dollars raising $1 million in Miracle Mile, and this is a Miracle Mile project here in Volusia and Side Street. I like option 1. We keep more control of the property. I like option 1. My God. we keep more control of the properties, and the city keeps more control. And I like to have an office component in the project because we need it, and I like to have office downtown. Parking, we have more parking in option 1 than we have in option 2, and that's very important for me. And today it is very important for downtown. Maybe 10, 15 years from now, it won't be, but the parking will be structured in such a way that it'll have an alternative use, which will provide even more space. I congratulate you again, and I'm very much for option 1. That's my opinion on this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
I'd like to see if the finance director could step forward 1 second. So I want to address the issue that Commissioner Mena mentioned a few moments ago in regards to whether the city could do this project on its own. Because I have some concerns about the project, and I like certain things about the project, but I personally would not, I have a different opinion as a mayor, I would not move forward with option 1. I think the massing is too significant, and I think it would cast a shadow on the downtown. But in reference to the city being able to do, I don't want to go into too much detail today. I've been mentioning this for 2 years. It's not like I mentioned it today for the first time, and I'll keep saying that over and over again until I turn blue in the face. The city could easily do its own parking garage. We're financially strong. It would just require us cutting expenditures, correct?
Or raising revenues
Or
to
raising
pay the
revenues.
debt service. Yes. So the question is different. What is the preference of finance to not take out more debt? That was the question. Can we do it? Sure, we can do it. We would have to find a revenue source. We would most likely have to increase parking fees or some other fees in order to generate enough revenue to cover the debt service that would be required to pay off the debt.
And let me tell you why
Or cut
I
expenditures.
ask you these questions. Because again, you know the finances better than anybody else. I want to leave all my options on the table. Nobody's going to back this commission up against the wall, and I want to make sure that all my colleagues understand that there are options at the table. Increasing revenue, reducing expenditures.
Absolutely.
We have one of the lowest parking rates in Miami-Dade County, correct? Always raise the rates. There's a lot of options at our disposal. So I disagree with the mayor. I think, I would love to have it all, but due to some requests by our parking department, which again, they're the parking experts, you have a massing issue here on this project. It's a significant project. Do I think it's beautiful? Yeah, it's stunning. But I think that currently, I'm not ready today to make a decision, and I don't think we're being asked to make a decision today. I think we're continuing to discuss the project, but I think we need to be honest with ourselves and have a discussion, and contemplate whether we want a building of this size and this magnitude. Because the only way to meet the requests made by staff is by, again, you got to put something on top of the cake top so that you can build it. And so that, again, it makes financial sense for the developer, which I agree. The developer's done everything he possibly can to meet our needs. He's been extremely flexible, but there comes a point where there's a breaking point. And
I have to.
No, of course, go ahead,
Let me
please.
respond before I am against the city doing anything of this magnitude or even smaller. I mean, we're very good to building parks, but every time we engage in a project of this size, whether it's Miracle Mile, Giralda, look at our police station, our old police station. We have really flubbed it, and it has been a disaster. I trust, and I think we all do, private enterprise to do a better job than we do. And this is private enterprise giving us what we need. Massing, yes, but we have the colonnade, we have in Miracle Mile, and we have the 0 block of Miracle Mile, or maybe it's 100 block with the residential towers. So massing, yes, but we have it already. But I am against the city even considering doing it on its own, a parking project on its own, and either having to raise revenue or whatever. I think that's a recipe for disaster. That's my opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't know if Commissioner Mena or Commissioner Keon had comments. I would volunteer to you
look,
unless I respond.
I have similar concerns as the mayor about us doing it ourselves based on my conversations with staff. With that said, I would love to know what the numbers look like, because we haven't been provided those, because I hear you just raised revenue, but I don't know that that gets us close to what we would need to do this on our own, so I don't know that that's realistic or not. I said at the last meeting, look, my thing is I want to get some parking done here, some quality parking in our downtown.
Agreed.
And my concern is these are the best options on the table right now, and I don't want to be 5-10 years down the line with the same thing we have now. So you got to give something to get something. I think what you're giving here is some of the massing you're talking about, which I understand your concerns about, believe me.
No, but you've been also.
But you're trying to
You've said
give
it.
and take.
I think everybody. I think everybody in this commission,
Yeah.
and I don't want to speak for the vice mayor, has mentioned that massing is an issue and it's a concern. It's a concern. We've talked about how beautiful the building is. When you're making a request of 750 parking spaces, there's no way around it. You can't hide it unless you go underground, and no one in Miami is going underground, especially in the current climate.
Yeah. So I think it comes down to what are you willing to give to get something back, and that's been the discussion here the whole time, I think. And so
I think if I could be very, very particular what we're looking for at the commission, well, right now I think the direction that we've had with staff has bettered the option one scenario because it was very difficult. We have to stage 2 sites. We have to build 2 sites. One we can't build on for 2 years. It's like buying a house and the person tells you, thank you for paying me top dollar. You can't move in for 2 years. It doesn't exactly work that way. And when the rubber hits the road on the deal, it became very difficult for us to make ends meet because of the second structure and the timing of it. But what we're looking for, to be very particular, is for the city to say, the commission, to say, we want the office tower or we don't want the office tower. And staff now has worked with the developer to come with a solution that works for option 1 with the office tower. I don't want to speak for staff. I'll let them address that concern specifically. But I think it became evident to us that the office was a very important component. And when I mean us in working with the city. And to the extent we're looking for the city to say, we need an office tower too. It makes too much sense. Hundreds of employees in downtown or corporate headquarters. Let's get the term sheet done subject to the conditions to satisfy the commission. And if the commission's desire, Commissioner Lago in particular, is that the massing has to meet a certain request and approval, then we will endeavor to accomplish that, in particular as a condition. But the importance is that the city select the option and that we worked from there based off a term sheet that we can create a development agreement that would be ultimately approved by the commission and subject to the massing concerns that Commissioner Lago has raised in this particular date and on prior occasions, of course. We've done everything that we can at this point in time within the box that we've created, including a lot of late-night meetings and dealing with that resulted in the lowered arch and the 2-tower design. But there are options in between 1 and to satisfy the commissioner's express requests. But these are the 2 scenarios where the city doesn't come out of pocket at all. And so what you are going to have with these 2 new garages is a significant increase in real estate taxes, which is 0 now on these 2 sites. And also, my understanding, and I'll let Leonard, because he just cranked out these numbers, I think, at the last moment with Barry, obviously an increase also in parking revenue. We've heard from the parking department that on G4, the top floor is completely non-functional. G1 is essentially the same level. So what we've done is we've created a brand new pie, a bigger pie, not a 50-year-old pie. We've created a bigger pie in that you currently have $1 million of revenue from this site. On a conservative estimate between real estate taxes and increased garage revenue, we believe that you should be well north of $2 million. And our estimates show you closer to $2.75 million. I think the city has a more conservative view, but even then you're talking about at least doubling the revenue you're seeing from the site. And so if we can double the revenue and we have some wiggle room there and we can create wiggle room in the massing, that's what we want to work on with the city on option 1 and work on wiggle room with that bigger pie where the city makes more money than it makes today it gets less massing to address the commissioner's need, and it gets that brand-new garage that it wants, and in particular with use of our spaces at night to get to 1,000 spaces, which is when these garages have had their biggest issue, shutting down in the evening for restaurants and weekend special events.
So,
And as you, Commissioner Lago, as you know, you can't get the 750 car garage for free. That comes off square footage. If it's a regular project, you can't pay for that, as you know. I certainly know that very well, being in the business. So the issue is, do we want no involvement from the city from a cash basis, and do we want to use the square footage to offset the cost of that parking garage? And that comes with that FAR.
And to the
But
point of
also
the finance.
let me just mention something to the city manager. When you talk about the issue of FAR, and I agree with you, I mean, the city, correct me if I'm wrong, I may be confused, but the city of Coral Gables does not count parking in reference to their FAR.
Correct.
The city of Miami does, and other municipalities do. So what ends up happening is, since we don't count parking, the massing of the building is even bigger, especially when you step up to 5%. And I see Ramon shaking his head. So that's something that, to me, that's where you're not really we are not taking that into account. So we're talking about an FAR being at 5%, 4.85, whatever that may be. Remember, we don't include parking in the FAR count. So if you were to kick that into in the city of Miami, your FAR would be off the charts. And that goes back to, and I want to be clear, Kevin's going to do everything he possibly can, Mr. Kinney, to fight on behalf of what he needs to run his department and to provide the adequate parking for this community. And like Commissioner Keon has mentioned before, 750 parking spaces, if that's what staff is saying, I've had to grow into that position. I've been asking for the last year and a half for a reduction. Why do we need so many parking spaces? Why do we have so many parking permit parkers? Is there a way that we can move them to another parking lot? I think we've gotten to the point where we've got to come to terms with the fact that this is an FAR at 5.0, which is going to make this into a pretty significantly large building. And if that's what you want in the downtown, I don't feel that comfortable with it. And by the way, this is something, and hopefully staff can attest to it, and my colleague, Commissioner Keon, and the dais can attest to it. I haven't always been a person who's been a proponent of large buildings or certain massing. I've always asked for a reduced size, and that's something that's caught people off guard, especially coming from the industry that I'm in. They always thought I was going to walk in here and I want more and more development. That's not the case. This is a quality project. Mr. Morris has done spectacular work in the city and throughout the state of Florida. That's not even coming into question or into the discussion. The issue is I have an issue with approving a project that's going to be here for the next 50 years, 60 years, and could set a precedent, number one, even though, from what I heard, Craig, Mr. Lean, go ahead.
Okay, so just to make sure I understand. So the concern for you is the massing of the project or the square or the FAR of the project?
But I wouldn't only say for me. I think some of my colleagues may have the same issue. It's a big project. It's a big project with a big FAR, with a big podium, with a lot of parking, with an overhang that's not similar to something that I've seen on that street, both in the alley and on the Lucia. So there's a few things that to me I have a concern with in the project, and I don't have a problem having a discussion here, or we can have it in a sunshine meeting, or we can have it on the commission floor, whatever you'd like to do. But today, right now, I am not ready to make that decision.
So
I know. I just want to. Listen. By the way, and I value your comments. So chime in whenever you like. I just want to be clear. I want to be upfront with the developer because it's time. It's time to make a decision.
So as of right now, we have until September 30th is when the expiration occurs for a memorandum of understanding or a letter of intent or just an agreement on business terms. And so, taking that into consideration, our objective was to go to the September 25th commission meeting with some direction from this meeting. So just, taking that as a basis. Also, I just want to take an opportunity. I know, Commissioner Mena, you had mentioned related to the finances and how this project looks. So we've evaluated and Commissioner Lago, you had discussed if we were to build this ourselves, and Diana had, discussed what it would cost, the debt service. And so because we have our $1 million that we make today, we make $1 million in those parking garage structures today. That's a net number we make. Those numbers are tied up for additional debt service. So if we were to get additional funding, it's that excess over the $1 million we would need as debt service for a project. So what we're estimating right now is roughly $1.6 million a year, roughly, is what it would take to build this project on our own. And
I don't want to have a discussion here. Yeah. I recommend you have a discussion with my colleagues, on another time. But there are multiple ways. One of the points that, one of the opportunities that I found was migrating from the county and having ticket services be brought into the city of Coral Gables. We were talking about that could be to the tune of between $500,000 to $1 million of additional revenue that the city would have. And there's other options, like Commissioner Mena mentioned, or I think somebody on this dais mentioned. It was raise parking rates. It's one of there's many things that can be done here, but that's a discussion for another day. I just wanted to bring that up because Commissioner Mena brought it up, and I want to make sure that we always know that there are options on the table. And we'll find them, and it doesn't even need to be that ingenious because we have those at our disposal.
I just don't think those options that you're describing get us there.
Yeah, that's a conversation that we need to have.
Oh,
We have our own sunshine meeting. We have our own sunshine meeting, and we discuss that, or we sit down with staff and see if there even is an appetite for that. Maybe Commissioner Keenan doesn't want to do that. Maybe she believes in a different model. I haven't had the discussion with her because I can't have a discussion with her.
No, right. All I'm saying is it's.
I'm just happy you brought it up.
No,
How about that?
No.
You brought it up, and I said, man, that's.
I think you brought it up, but what I'm saying is I need to weigh these options versus the alternative.
Yeah.
And the alternative to me is we probably stay with the garages we have, which are terrible.
And
that concerns me.
And that concerns me because it's not what the business community deserves.
Right. So we did this great streetscape project. We took some parking away, but there's no parking. Yeah. There's no high quality parking.
Yes.
Outside of the valet, which I think, with the centralized system is going to be really good. So that's where I'm at. And so, again, I share your concerns about the massing, but the question I think for us is, are you willing to compromise on that in order to get a new parking garage?
Tax revenue?
Whatever the cash flow is, and the economic development benefits, to the CBD. That's really the decision to be made here.
No, I agree with you.
So.
Now, my only question is, would you be interested in having a discussion, sunshine meeting between whoever wants to join in that commission meeting and staff to discuss if there are alternate opportunities, and if we're willing to move in the direction of maybe, I hate to say this, but picking apart this product and maybe bringing the massing down even further.
Let me speak to that.
I'm talking about it because I just want to put everything on the table because we don't really get that many opportunities to actually speak.
Agreed.
In
and
public.
Because you have an hour, I just want to give you my 2 cents on what you want to try to accomplish today. Is you've got 2 options on the table, and your accomplishment is to talk about these. And my only suggestion would be, and it's a suggestion only, you can flush it down the toilet, is that if by September 30th, if you are not going to go with these options, I think a decision needs to be made, because the only thing that concerns me is I totally agree that it's a viable possibility that the city decides to say, hey, pause, we may going to look at this, we're going to do our own numbers. The only thing is, this has been going on for a long period of time, and they've spent a lot of money, and they've spent a lot of energy. So there's a point where like I go back to the 4 points, if this doesn't deal with, do we own it, do we lease it, do we finance it, do we have the parking, and do we have the massing, that makes all of you, 4/5 vote is necessary to go to the next step, well, then that's fine, but there's a point where, quite honestly, you shouldn't be paying my fees and they shouldn't be spending money because it may not work for you. So, again, one other point that I want to point out that we, your city manager and Leonard and Miriam, all the smart people that you have in the room are constantly thinking. And poor Kevin, we're always like, are you sure you need 750? What if I take Uber to Coral Gables every time? You were one car down, you know? So we're always having these conversations. But what's interesting is, are there options for your question, which is how many permit parkers are in which garage? And if the estimate is we sell 200-ish, and if I'm wrong, Kevin, correct me, I think I have it memorized by now, but generally that says about 95 or 100 are using them. Is there a place to put those 100 parking spaces, which then gets you closer to the 620 number? That's just food for thought, because as you get thrown information, you got to digest it. So that's my.
And by the way, I agree with your comments 100%. I echoed the same comments at the last meeting where I said it's time to fish or cut bait. That's where we're at.
And ask as many questions. I will tell you, I was the first one to ask the city manager and our colleagues to let's keep our presentation short and let this be a conversation piece for you guys.
To speak to Commissioner Lago's point, because I think you hit the nail on the head. What are we willing to do to deal with the massing on this project? Okay, we're asked to put two proposals forward, one with an office tower and one without the office tower. We found a solution with the office tower where we give you guys, replace the spaces you have during the day. We give you the 1,000 when you shut down at night, and we're going to find a solution to the 95 permit parkers that everybody's been harping at. So we have a solution that's up to 1,000 at night, independent of the 750, so that we can maintain the office. I mean, I want to make sure that's clear, because that's been a huge difference from what previous has been seen. And we found more spaces, and we squeezed and we squeezed and we re-engineered, and we're able to give you brand new garages with the same exact spaces, and then 1,000 at night. The solution is going to be in G1 to reposition those daytime permit parkers, okay, in a way where it's suitable for us, the developer, the city, and that's going to be a condition of moving forward with option 1. So that addresses the parking concern so that we can have our term sheet in hand for the concept that we're doing. Secondly, in terms of the massing, I have our architect, and you said, well, what do we do? Do we have a sunshine? Do we have a discussion specifically on it? And we can do it right now, and everything's on the table, and our architect's here. And so I think that what I'm trying to get to is I want to get option 1 where we can focus our energy, and for the commission to give direction and say, that's where we want you guys to focus your energy. We're going to move forward with option 1, subject to as many conditions as we need. If ultimately we don't approve the mass, then we don't approve it. But we want to hear from you in regards, because you've raised it on numerous occasions, in how we can create because you put yourself in that seat, how do we create, with the help of the architect if we need to, here right now, with everybody we need, a solution to this massing on this project? Because we're talking about the Garage 4 issue. What can we do as developers to make sure that we speak to your vision for the city? Because everybody has a vision for the city, and we want to make sure that we're respectful of that vision.
We have gone for this project for quite some time, and I think we've taken it to a point where there's two solutions. However, the massing, a certain amount of massing, the massing has to be there in essence to pay for that parking garage, and there's no way around that. We need to pay for a parking garage that's $25 to $30 million, and that cannot be paid by a normal project, as you know, Commissioner Lago. Normal project's not going to happen. So how do we pay for that? And paying for that will be with additional massing. There has to be a square footage that will pay for that additional cost, and that's where we're at now. So the idea of this was to have two projects which are viable if the massing is okay. If the commission feels the massing is not sufficient, then this project really cannot proceed with the developer paying for that entire parking garage. And that's where we're at right now. So we would like to, we haven't got into there's a number of issues still. We haven't gotten into the weeds completely because we'd like to get some guidance as to what the commission feels is that proper amount of massing and so forth that we can live with and still make these projects viable, right? And okay. that's really it's a cost issue.
You know, that massing is attributable to, if you look at the screen right here, we talked FAR, we talked building area, height, and parking. And so these are all the combinations that move that massing. And so if we, again, going back to that point I made earlier, if you take 3.5 and you take the value of our sites today, and you take the cost of construction, and you add the paseos, no developer can do that in that scenario. So
100%.
there
I
has to
agree
be-
with you.
yeah,
That's
there
not
ha-
even in question.
Yeah.
Is the massing different on, excuse me, on garage 4 between option 1 and option 2?
The massing is different from the standpoint that we move all the public parking into G1, okay? And so what we do is we lower the podium by a floor. We have 190
On the-
spaces.
We're talking about on the garage 4
On the
building.
garage podium. Let me be more specific.
The
Sorry.
residential building would be smaller on option 1, is what you're saying?
It would be smaller, but so what we would do is we would replace a floor of podium with a floor of residential, because now we only have one site that we're building on. And
That's
just,
the difference.
thank you. I'd just like to recognize Commissioner Quesada. I want to thank you for coming here today. I know that you have a lot going on, so thank you very much for making it here to join us today.
Just make sure you call him Vice Mayor. He gets upset. I've
Sorry.
learned the hard way already.
Senator, could you show Commissioner Mena
Vice Mayor
the
Quesada, my
option
apologies.
1 versus,
Sure.
it happen again.
Commissioner Minute, to your point, right here is a rendering of the garage, garage 4, option 2, which is the bigger massing, which is where the city owns the
Right.
parking. And so it's 324 parking spaces. You have 3 floors of garage here. These 3 floors are because we don't share in the garage. And then when I go back, whoops, you have 295, I'm sorry, and then you have 4 floors, and that's
There's, the way it works, and the way it works in option 2 is there's a lot of efficiency in every last square foot that you do, because you already built all your structural components, your elevators, your staircases, et cetera, et cetera. So when we just go to one site, we don't have the difficulties of building 2 sites. It's less expensive to build a garage without an office tower on it. We can make the economics work with just one site, and then we reduce the podium 1 floor. Now, honestly, we believe that the office tower is really more in line with all the feedback we've gotten because of the economic activity that it provides. We make the same yield on cost, which is really the line that we have to hold so that we can make this project financeable. This is not a matter of does the developer make enough money or not. This is a matter of can we get this project financed? Can we get investors for this project? So from the standpoint of yield, it's the same. It's agnostic. There is more revenue in option 1 because it's a separate tower, but the revenue to the city is significantly outweighed because of the tax revenues that you guys are going to be taking home. Now, I'm willing, as I said earlier, to pencil out any solution, but we're just trying to, for the purposes of Vice Mayor Quesada, excuse me, that there was a significant change that we made in our option 1 with the tower. We've been able to go from 577 daytime spaces to 620. We're still offering the city 1,000 at night, and we've diced that up, or we've moved 400 units to G1 in particular, where we believe we've identified the issue as just 95 permit parkers that we can relocate from G1, and staff can now support the option 1 scenario, which is with both towers. I think that that's a significant shift. We've both been working to get to a solution. We've been having a lot of outside-of-the-box conversations, and so we're putting forth option 1, and we're looking for a term sheet, which I will admit is a non-binding agreement, but it's one that allows us to move forward with our anchor tenant, and it can be subject to the conditions that the commission wants to place upon it in terms of approval of massing specifically. So we can work on that. Now, the important thing when Commissioner Lago returns is that we can have a discussion. Once we focus our energies on one option, we say option 1, let's focus our energies there, and we can have discussions about what it means to adjust the massing on the project, because it becomes a financial one. But we have a solution where the city doesn't have to go out and seek new debt financing to alleviate the finance department's concern. In fact, we're going to at least double the revenue that you get from these properties today, and in the parking revenue is the solution that we need. We share a little bit in the garage revenue because we're increasing it. And we're really talking about the delta between what you make today and what you're making in the future. And you also have the real estate taxes there. And we just don't have another way to do it, where if the city tells us, we don't want to come out of pocket, this is what we can do. But we don't want the massing, well, then the city has to say, you guys are bringing a much bigger pie to the table. We're willing to share a piece of that with you so that we can have the massing that we want and our concerns as a city. So that's what we can take it as a next step with staff, focus on option one, work on that massing, and figure out back and forth so that staff understands really what the budgetary constraints are, what the constraints on the pro forma are, and probably the staff can budget out a la carte what the project can withstand and then achieve the massing that the commission wants. But the step today, or the step on the 25th that we're looking for direction on, is to say, yes, focus your energy on option one. Let's get the term sheet done subject to the condition of the massing, because the importance there is we will have our office tenant locked in. Without the office tenant, I can't hit these numbers, and I can't give you the zero financing because the economics are much better for us as we stand here today.
Let me just jump in, just to clarify. You have two options. We are not just talking about option one. So make sure we're looking at that. I also would concern ourselves with picking one or the other and saying, now go renegotiate it again. Once you give direction, then the question is, go fine tune it and give us X amount of days to really get that term sheet. So the idea that we can go with option one or option two and change FARs a lot or change parking a lot without adding money, which we know is a non-starter for most of you, is what I'm hearing. I just urge you to look at the facts, because I think your staff has done a really good job bringing two really the most viable options considering the situation.
And going back to the city participation, we know that Diana's number is $1 million that's locked in. If the city commission gives direction and say that additional income that we're going to make over and beyond that $1 million.
Can you show me that again?
Sure. So in this slide right here in option one, we're showing we're making $1.8 million as a result of having 620 parking spaces combined between the two projects. Our $1 million being our bottom line, it's $830,000. So in this situation right here, we'd have $830,000 to technically play with.
Additional revenue.
Yeah, to get to a massing that may potentially make
That's
sense.
additional annual revenue.
Additional annual revenue, correct.
Have you projected that out over any
So
period of time?
I just received that at 2:55 today.
Understood.
So I can go over with you preliminary as a, but I haven't had a chance to really.
Presumably that number will go up over time because of increased parking rates?
Sure. Yes, that number will go up over time. When we look at just option one and option two, and I'll clarify that. Option two, in a case where we have 750, obviously more parking spaces, the city controls or shares in the control of the retail side. This will allow the developer to build it for us. We make 1.1 million over and beyond that $1 million. So it's 2 million. So in that case right there, we have roughly a $1.1 million to, use as a basis to reduce. But what CGC has told me already in the past is that there's a bottom line that they can't pass. And we have our max line of 3.5 FAR, I should say, we have a 3.5 FAR, and they have a number. So we have to get somewhere in between there. So it's had to be somewhere above 3.5 as a discussion. So that, I want to make sure the commission's aware that whatever we discuss going forward, it's going to have to be over a 3.5.
How is it that, sorry, I'm trying to, on the real estate taxes, the building on, the additional building on option one would only generate an additional 120,000 in real estate tax?
Yeah, let me go through an analysis here. These are supplemental sheets that I had just in case these questions came up.
Yeah.
So what we've done is that we've taken stabilized buildings throughout Coral Gables, specifically Coral Gables, instead of looking at from a county level. We've taken 396 as an example, Alhambra, which is an office tower, which we believe would be an equivalent product as the CGCC office tower. That's somewhat stabilized. So we took what the actual square footage of that project is with the gross square footage, which we have calculations for the garage component, and we calculated what it would be. And on the residential tower, we took Gables Ponds as being one example of a stabilized project, which is a pretty higher end product for apartment buildings. And this product is going to be pretty high end. And we use that as a comparison on a per unit basis. And that's how we came up with our calculations. Our numbers are lower than the developer's numbers. when it comes to parking revenue, but that's honestly, in my opinion, that's a shot in the dark. It all depends on the property appraisers and how they come up with those numbers.
To speak to the point, even on the most conservative end that we're discussing here, and I pulled up the comps that the city used. We have obviously a higher tax number that we're looking at. It's not, it's still astronomical, the real estate taxes. The property appraiser has yet to reassess that particular residential comp property. It's been assessed at 1.2 for the last 4 years. But really, it's besides the point. The point here is massing. The solution is, even from staff's standpoint on the conservative end, to what our third-party experts that have given their own independent opinions, there's basically an extra $1 million in revenue day one. That's day one. Obviously, real estate taxes continue to increase. You guys are at $1 million today, no matter what happens in the future, unless you raise rates because you don't have a private component. Now when we have a private component, it's not just about the real estate taxes not about just the parking revenue in 5 or 10 years. It's about the real estate taxes in 5 or 10 years. It's going to become a bigger number and a bigger number and a bigger number for the city. When I was a kid here, I used to go to the youth center. Most of us know what the youth center used to look like. I think all of us remember what it used to look like before it got remodeled. It is a world-class facility now. We do that with real estate tax dollars that come from our CBD, and that's what we have on the table. We can also use that at the commission's discretion to buy down massing. And I know that it sounds a little odd to say that, but we're at the point now where we're telling the commission, these are the two examples we can bring to the table. Our yield on cost is approximately 6.7%. We will do anything that the commission wants within reason to maintain that yield on cost. If we lower the massing, it's a direct correlation to the yield that we can look at that bigger pie in real estate taxes and in garage revenue. If you want to look at it as a TIF scenario, other municipalities do tax incremental financing on a regular basis. It's essentially an in-house program because you have garage revenue dollars specifically from this project due to the fact that we're bringing to the table this development. And so in this instance, you're using it to buy it down.
And to that point, I think it's important to understand that the buy down, we can pay as much as you want for a buy down, right? But if I'm not mistaken, Anthony, correct me, at a certain point, if we want to get to 3.5 FAR, those numbers for your internal purposes don't work. Even if the city had contributed,
We'll never get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the scenario, if the commission's saying today, we need a 3.5 FAR project, right, and then also build these parking garages. I hope that's not the discussion we're having. I hope we're having a discussion about, we split the massing up between two sites, and we can work on specifically G4. And I'll speak plainly. I think that the appetite for the office tower is higher than the appetite for the G4, specifically because God made it that way. Or excuse me, George Merrick made it that way when he platted the craft section plat, and it's 500 feet long by 100 feet deep. If we can make G4 more like the office tower, I think that we can significantly improve the massing there. And Commissioner Lago, I don't mean to shine the spotlight on your comments, but you've been the most adamant about it, and I want to respect your particular vision and opinion because we want to get this garage done. And I have John Cunningham here, the architect from the project, and I'm willing to take Sharpie to paper right now and get an idea of what, and share it with the commission so that we can solve to that massing. Okay?
But let's be clear, 3.5 will not work. 3.5 is a standard project.
Right.
The standard project will not work.
And the RFP was always, look, the RFP was always approved taking into account that, and Craig Lean, the former city attorney, put forth the opinion of the city on a number of occasions that this is a project of public benefit and that there's not going to be a precedent set by this. This is a very special vacuum-sealed situation to get us the parking we need. So we have it on the table, and we're at that moment right now where we teeter yes or we teeter question mark. And I'm trying to teeter yes and focus our energy on option one. And if the commission would circulate and pen out, and we can make this more like Office One. We can look at the spaces that are in this massing today. We can cut it down. There was a wedding cake proposal that we gave previously. We've been referring it to as a wedding cake, where we significantly reduced down the massing of the project. I think we can put that back on the table and work to that solution. Will there be a dollar amount that we need from the city to get there? Yes. Will it be a scenario where the city will still be able to get more money than it nets today? I can guarantee that. There is a scenario if the city's comfortable saying, we want to net more money than we net today. We want to only look at the monies that you are going to create from this project to make it happen. Move forward with that scenario and bring it to the table so that we can massage the massing.
Commissioner Mena, you had a good question concerning real estate taxes. One building, in one scenario, scenario 2, we own one property, the developer owns the other. The other is a vertical subdivision. So there's mixed ownership on both.
Gotcha.
And that's why the real estate taxes are not twice what they are or something like that.
Thank you.
Right.
That's where I was going, just to add to that, although this is literally first off the press and he hasn't been able to dissect it, but just generally speaking, the number you're seeing is on day one, and as we know, as increase in value, you're talking the number that you really will be much lower. Again, we have to look at a 10-year out and no 2008 happening, so there's not really.
Even cutting the real estate taxes in half and going to the city's number, you're at a $100 million figure over 30 years between garage revenue and real estate taxes. So the pie is huge. We need to figure out, can we use a little bit of it to make it happen? We can also do things that aren't as impactful to our yield to the project in rearranging some of this massing. And Commissioner Lagos alluded to rearranging some of it. And if the office tower is the goal, then we will rearrange the massing here to be like the office tower.
Would you guys like to address that right now, that massing concern? I have the slide right here that talks about the 4 points that we've discussed.
The massing's a picture.
Right, and FAR square feet, parking spaces contribute to that massing. So I don't know if you want to dive into this. And
I appreciate your interest in doing this right here, right now, but I mean, let's be honest. Peter will tell you, this is not the way you handle it. You got to sit down. You got to review this with staff. You got to look at different iterations and see what makes sense. You can't just start lopping off floors one at a time. There's ramifications to that.
Got it.
When you cut off a floor, how many parking spaces do you use? You got to calculate how many parking spaces do you have per floor. I could go on for an hour. So I appreciate the developer's interest in trying to get this resolved today and signing a deal. But again, I don't feel comfortable. I don't know how my colleagues feel. Commissioner Keon.
I don't know. I'm not gonna redesign a building today from the dais. I'm never gonna design the building any day from the dais. Never. I agree with Commissioner Lago. I understand that that the 3.5 FAR is too low, but I am more concerned with retaining the aesthetics of this community going forward for the long term and those things that have made this community as attractive as it is than I am worrying about whether, in the next year or 12 months we have parking garages. It isn't the long-term aesthetic of this community is far more meaningful to me than those particular parking spaces. And I think from the day that you presented this project in the response to the RFP, you knew going in that, and you said it that very day, you could never build in accordance with that RFP. Never. You couldn't build. It wasn't profitable. It couldn't be a project. You wouldn't do it. You couldn't do it. So, you move forward with an opportunity to negotiate. And I really couldn't tell you over all these many, many months why you continue to have a conversation when, what you are offering is not what you were asked to provide. I still don't understand, when you have total daytime parking spaces, your number is 740. Are those total daytime public parking spaces under the control of our parking department?
They will be on-site replacing.
Are they,
I'll
I
let-
want to know how many public parking spaces that our parking department would control in that number?
I would control them. 620 would actually belong to us. The conversation has been
Okay.
finding additional supply
Yeah,
that's
so-
appropriate that we
You know what? We either agree that we will take staff's number of 750, or we ignore staff. I'm willing to accept what staff has said to us and has provided us with studies and provided us with conversation that we need 750 spaces. So none of these proposals provide us with the parking that we
Actually,
we
we-
need,
I haven't-
that are public parking spaces for daytime use.
I haven't seen the study that shows 750 daytime. The study,
It
I
said
haven't seen it.
750, and
Well, the data I've seen says we need that at night and weekend,
recommendation.
and we have 1,000 night and
we
weekend,
said,
option one.
I'm talking daytime, I'm talking about a day, not daytime, a day, in a 24-hour period. We
Yeah,
need
the
a
data we have,
700
the data we have doesn't
750.
support that. I'm sorry, I haven't seen that data. I just haven't.
I think it has. Okay, well, we can agree to disagree on that one, too.
I mean, there's 2 or 3
But-
studies.
But I think, what we've been told is that it's 750. We've never seen 750, so we're still getting a project that I think is way too big and doesn't give us the parking that we really need to service it downtown. And you keep telling us that you're going to have a solution for the permit parking, but you still haven't told us what that is. So, we don't have it. And those permit parking spaces are for people that work in the downtown. A lot of them are small businesses, a lot of them are the shops along the mile. They are a number of little businesses that are spread throughout the city. You need those permit parking spaces if you're going to maintain or keep, that type of tenant and that variety of businesses here within the city. I think that that's important that we do that. So I really don't support anything you have here in front of us right now.
Option 2 does provide the city with 750.
And it's
in our control. It's a-
right,
it's a
but
garage.
and what was the issue with option 2? It's bigger.
No, it's smaller, we just don't have an office tower, unfortunately.
I don't really know that we need office spaces downtown. I think I was talking to someone the other day, and they said that do we as a city need to provide additional office space downtown, or will the private sector come in, redevelop the office space downtown, and provide us with the office space that we need? I mean, we have a lot of buildings that really should be redone because they don't provide us with Class A office space. But they can be done, and I think the private sector will come in, and when that's, when the rental market for square foot for office spaces here within the city, reaches that point, people will come in and they'll do it.
I believe
So
we're,
I don't really need to do that. And I think we have had continuous discussions here about the need for, if we want to make a walkable downtown and we want all of the amenities that we continue to talk about, it requires that there be people in the downtown. So I have a preference for residential as opposed to office anyway, for those reasons. So I like to see people there that are there all day, not just part of the day, and that are there on the weekends too,
If I can,
and they're there on the holidays. But so I'm not real comfortable with any of this. So I think you need to talk to somebody else for a while.
my apologies for being late. I've been dealing with some family issues. Respectfully, I'm on the completely other side of the coin on this one, Commissioner. Just a few quick things. I think it's important to have office downtown. Just from looking at the commercial real estate numbers that I've seen in the past, I think it's good to have a mix of whether it's A, B, quadruple A, whatever it is. But I just think you see the numbers. And I've worked in downtown Coral Gables my entire working career, except for the last few years, which we're actually moving back now into downtown Coral Gables, my business. I think that foot traffic of the businesses coming in and out, I think that foot traffic of hotel stays related to business use, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean,
I like option one. I hate option two, just for the fact that I think if we just have a monolith parking garage, I think it's a mistake in our downtown, like in the center of our downtown. I also think that if we did option two, assuming that we can get 3 votes to agree on one of these options, option two, just having a parking garage there, I just think it's a mistake. When you walk by, unless you live in one of the buildings, then you're never going to be up in sort of like the center of our downtown, which if you can have an office meeting or there's office space, there's going to be conference rooms, or there's going to be, I don't want to say a ballroom, but there could be meeting space as well. And I think it's going to have a great view. And I think of the Agave building at the end on Ponce there has a great view of the downtown. People love using that rooftop and those meeting spaces. And I think that'll give that kind of amenity that will attract more people into the downtown. I think the mix is good because you want during the week, during the day, it to be, a lot of movement on the mile. As far as parking space and the permitting issue, man, I still have a lot of problems with it. I know I was out of town when we had that other meeting on it, but man, I don't see the need of having excess number of permit parking at that location. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't. And I know Kevin, and actually it's funny, I have like a love-hate relationship with everything that Kevin tells me. Sometimes I agree with him wholeheartedly. Other times I disagree with him wholeheartedly, so which I actually think is healthy. But something he told me recently is that, when they have those big numbers of permanent parking, it's month to month. So if it's going to get full, he can adapt from month to month to go here and there. But then I've also heard of individuals and realtors, which everyone in this room knows the name, but I'm not going to say the name of the person, that will get our public parking spots and flip them more expensive. And isn't that a question? Isn't that a comment for you?
That person buys 12 and they're under investigation.
Okay, good.
They buy 12 and it's not in the CBD.
All right, but I'm just, okay. I think Commissioner Mena may have said this, or Commissioner Lago, maybe at the workshop that we had in the police station, something along the lines of sort of almost like that, let the market decide, just continue raising the prices, and that'll push people out and, make the other ones cheaper. I just think that it's got to be a combination. I'm not disagreeing with you that we need some permit parking for those businesses that are near or directly on Miracle Mile. It's the bigger numbers, which I don't want to get into a long parking conversation. Aesthetically, I like it. I mean, it's almost, I feel like it's going to look a lot like the other project on Alhambra that Alan Morris has, which we all love. I've always liked the archway. I see that it's been, I guess, cut down a little bit here from this rendering I'm seeing here. And I see it's been scaled back on office, in the garage 1 for the office space there. It seems like it just from looking at it, obviously walking in late, but that's where I feel. I like it. I think it'd be a shame for us to have just a parking garage in one of those locations, because I don't think that's all the foot traffic that you want. I think a business gives you so much, office space gives you so much, and I think the interplay with both, I think, would work well, but that's where I'm at.
If I can interject, just to address one of Commissioner Lago's points. What I'm getting from, and the mayor is not here, but I think he expressed his support for the importance of an office to the CBD. I just want to make sure that we can understand the relevance of that office tower, and if it's Commissioner Lago's direction in particular, that if he would also like to see an office tower in the CBD, then we can definitely work on option 1 from the massing standpoint, make G4 like G1, make it so it's masked differently, and we would like the opportunity to do that and just focus on option 1 and come back and just put all our energy in that, and then get the opinion and decision of the commission as to whether they like the massing or not once we make it look like G1. I think everybody likes the G1 tower. It's a more compact footprint. We can do the same with G4, and we can also find ways to address the square footage situation.
Can I ask you a question, if you don't mind, just to clear?
Yes, absolutely.
If we were to focus in on G1 and the massing, and in order to accomplish that, is that going to change, or, sorry, G4, one of the parking garages, is that going to change the parking, and is that going to change the out-of-pocket? Because I think those are important variables.
It's not something that will change the parking on option 1 unless the commission told us to take off a podium, floor of garage. I'm talking about specifically addressing the use above the podium. And there are things that we can do that will not impact the financing, that will, again, when I say financing, I mean a piece of the added pie, like a TIF. There are things we can do that does not dip into that, and then we'll see how far we can go with that. And then there'll be a point where we have to dip into that a little bit. And we have some outside-the-box concepts, but it really just depends on we can't keep going down dual paths with the two options. I think staff has said now they feel comfortable with the parking solution on the table for both options. And if the commission says, Mr. Diuri, Alan Morris, related, go, we want to see an office, make it work for us, and put everything on the table that will not impact us, and then show what you guys can do with only a small amount as possible, the dollars that you're adding to the pie on these sites.
I think what you're talking about is balancing the FARs on both, trying to balance better the FAR on both sites on option 1.
I can work on option 1 flat out if.
I believe that's what you're saying, though. You're looking at balancing the FAR on both sites to reduce the massing.
I can
overall
balance
in each individual site.
Correct, and you know it really is. I'm putting myself out there bare. The developers putting themselves out there bare. We are ready to do anything possible to maintain our yield in the project. As long as we maintain our yield in the project, which is the thinnest deal that both of these developers are going to do this cycle, in addition to the added risk and cost of building the city's garage, which is not part of their private budget, and taking that risk on for the city and building the site, we're willing to do anything it takes. And it looks like it's coming down to massing. But if I could, take the mayor's comments and the comments generally from the commission that the office tower is important and we need to do a much better job on G4 to make that massing acceptable with the vision that the commission sees for this project. And it's just to focus our energies on G4.
City Manager, you made reference to balancing. Are you referring, in this slide that I have up right now, are you saying to have equal square footage of?
Not equal, but reduce the
on
massing on G4
Right.
and increase the massing on G1. I believe that's what we were talking about.
Okay.
Which means that we haven't really gotten into the weeds in this thing.
Right.
Because there's a number of issues, but if that's something that we could look at, we certainly will.
Look,
We want to get in the weeds. We just
understood.
need which one to get in the weeds.
And look, I'm open to you guys pursuing option 1 and sort of talking about whatever these options are further. I also, out of respect for you and your own client and city staff, I don't want you guys spinning your wheels on this further if you're not going to get there with some of my colleagues. And so I think you need to maybe have some further discussions, because it sounds to me like Commissioner Keon is not even close.
Oh, no,
and whatever discussions you should have with Commissioner Lago, but you're ultimately going to need 4 votes.
Right.
And if they're not there, and they're not going to be there, then I don't want you to keep going down the rabbit hole further. So,
And I want to just make 2 quick comments to kind of to balance out Commissioner Mena's comments, because I agree with what he's saying. How many times have we met?
I had a dream about.
Who treated you to breakfast this morning? Who treated you?
I had a dream about meeting with you.
Who treated you to breakfast this morning?
Commissioner Lago.
Who treated you to breakfast the last 5 times we met?
Commissioner Lago.
Every single time, right?
Commissioner Lago. And it's a healthy breakfast, and it's a good breakfast.
So this is an issue about this is not an issue about meeting. This is an issue about no. This is not an issue about meeting. We can meet tomorrow. We can meet the next day. We can continue to meet. My door's always open. I mean, We just, we can continue to meet. The issue here is, and you know that I've mentioned this before, and I'll continue to mention I don't envision that corridor, that street being from Lejeune to Ponce and just being a wall. I don't see that that's any benefit to the city. I don't think that is in George Merrick's vision, and he was a developer, but I think that we could do better. I think it takes away from the city, no matter how much, no matter the beauty of the buildings, I think it's just not in the best interest of the city. I think there has to be more articulation on the buildings. I think the massing has to be brought down significantly. But again, I understand what position you're in. That you're in a situation that no other building in Coral Gables is in. And that is, you have an FAR, which, again, if this was like our former city attorney stated, that we're not setting a precedent here, but I feel for some reason, I mentioned this before, I kind of feel that we are, even though Craig stated that we're not. We're asking you to provide 750 parking spaces, and that podium is pushing this project beyond what I feel comfortable with. Trust me, it's a very tough decision for me, because I know the effort that you have done and the developer has done. It's been years of work, but I'm more than willing to meet with you. But at the end of the day, I understand what your yield is, and you're not going to build us a parking garage for free. There has to be some revenue that's going to drive this vehicle. So, I mean, we can meet and I can have multiple discussions on this again. And we had one this morning at 7:30. We can meet again. I just think that I've had very few regrets since I've been in public office. But I can probably name the two, and I don't want to say them here out of respect for certain votes that I've taken on the commission. So I want to be very, 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 and I've mentioned this to Commissioner Keon before, I want to be very careful, because I value the developer, I value your attorney, I value your team so much, but at the end of the day, we're charged with making sure that we do what's right by the city. And I can't make a decision today. We weren't charged to make a decision today.
You actually can't make a decision.
No, I know. But I'm saying, but I don't want to, like Commissioner Mena, and I've told you from the beginning, a year and a half in, this is certain things that I am looking for. And I kind of feel that we stacked the deck against the developer too. And this has nothing to do with you because you weren't around. I will take responsibility for that. When you ask for 750 parking spaces, going back to what Mr. Trias and I have talked about on multiple occasions, we don't count parking in the FAR. And that works in certain instances. In this instance, it doesn't, because you can keep harping about 5 FAR, 5 FAR, 5 FAR, but at the end of the day, you still have a massive podium that needs to be accounted for.
And listen, to be clear, I'm sure, I have no doubt that you guys have met multiple times. My point is merely...
No, I never meant it that way.
No, but my point is merely, if with any two of us, it's clear that there's no path forward, and I don't want you to waste more time and money on that. So, you know the information, the conversations you've had.
I'll let Mr. Morris speak, but I just want to post one question to Commissioner Lago.
Yes.
If there is a path where we can lower the massing to the satisfaction and vision of the commission, okay, but it only involves additional revenues above and beyond what you have today, can we explore that?
And that's taken in consideration. It's going to be, the ceiling, the floor starts at 3.5. I mean, it's above that. So taking that comment into consideration, I'm just trying to...
I'd have to sit down with Leonard and our team here and really sit down and understand
what that means.
And I'd really want to understand the breakdown.
What you just said, I didn't understand
the number would be, that we come to an agreement would be, it would be a contribution of some dollar amount over and beyond the $1 million we make today. Right. In addition, the floor where we're starting at would be 3.5. So the project...
3.5 what?
FAR, I'm sorry, 3.5 FAR. So the 3.5 FAR right now is the floor that would be discussion, and the revenue we're making roughly right now over and beyond the $1 million in a stabilized year, we're making roughly between 1.5 and $2 million. So we have that's total. we're making about $1 million, between 500 to $1 million of money that we have to technically play with annually to bring down the massing. But bringing down that massing is never going to get to 3.5.
You know what, I think that the calculation that you're using of 3.5 for the FAR is, is irrelevant, because
Okay.
you're doing it based on the footprint of the current garage. And then you're cantilevering over the sidewalk, you're cantilevering over the alley. So, you know, it doesn't really, the size of the building is not reflected in the FAR. It is a much bigger building than what you would normally think of for that FAR. And so because of those details and because of the way you need to do this in order to build an efficient parking garage, you know, you really have a much bigger footprint than what is the footprint for that building. So, you know, to sit here and keep talking about FAR you know, I don't even,
Right.
it's not even a number I care about. It doesn't, it means, it is, to me, it is absolutely a meaningless number because it doesn't reflect what you would expect to see and generally what you equate it to. So it's a meaningless number to me. I don't care.
And to
what
Commissioner,
I care
I'm sorry.
about
Go ahead.
is the actual mass and volume of the building. And one, you know, Andalusia is not that wide a street, and when you look at that, you know, all the way up, you know, to Ponds, I have some real concerns as to how does that aesthetic work in our city, in the CBD, as we continue to, and you know, it's not even building it out, it's rebuilding it out, because there is no vacant land in our city. So what you're going to see are buildings that someone's going to come in, they're going to tear down, and they're going to rebuild. So, you know, it's how do we, you know, what is that vision? What is that look? I think right now they are exceedingly large buildings. And I truly understand that they need to be at that size in order for them to be worth their while to build. Because if they couldn't build that, they're not going to do it. They're not, a non-for-profit that wants to come in and give to the city. I would never expect that from them. I mean, they're in business to build buildings, to make money, and you know, do whatever. So I don't expect it. I also think that it's not in our best interest to really believe that we should build parking garages and never have to spend any money to get what we want. I don't think there's any reason why we wouldn't in some way contribute to the cost of a building that we want for the public benefit that brings to us, and expect that anybody's going to carry that burden on their back and is really going to give you what you think you're going to get. You're kidding yourself. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. So, I mean, I think that's why I don't know what the basis is that you move forward on. I have to agree with Commissioner Lago. They are too big. They are too massive for that space that they sit on. I mean, you know, I think your building on Alhambra is beautiful, but it also doesn't cantilever over the alleys, and it doesn't cantilever over the sidewalks, and it doesn't, you know, it's a very beautiful building in a very nice space, in a very nice setting. And it's, you know, I couldn't be more happy that you built it in our city because it's beautiful. And you have, you know, you are a good citizen to this city. I mean, you have always been. Your family has cared for, given back, and always stepped up when anybody asks for anything for this city. So it certainly is absolutely no reflection on you. It is, you know, how the responsibility that I feel as an elected official to preserve the aesthetic of this community. So, you know, and I don't see it,
Yeah, sure.
you know, but it may be there, and maybe I just don't see it. But at this moment, I don't see it.
Thank you, Commissioner Keon. And I really love this community, and I'm here because I really care about protecting this community and making it more beautiful. and we've won 9 awards for Alhambra Towers. And I'd love to win 9 awards for Coral Gables City Center, for you, for the city, to see something really great that people love in this community, and to bring people down the elevators to Miracle Mile, to enhance the viability of Miracle Mile. And I think what we've put together so far is a majestic solution of all the different things the city has asked for, to get brand new, modern, state-of-the-art garages with smart parking, together with an economic engine that'll pay for it for the city. And I'm happy to figure out how we can further tweak and balance that formula. If you, as the commission, will say, let's tweak option 1 till everyone is satisfied. It sounds like 3 of our commissioners like it the way it is, and a couple of you still have questions about the massing, and I respect that. And I want to solve that problem right now so that the city gets the garages they deserve to have, and the community gets this benefit for downtown Coral Gables. And if we can just make a little bit of time, maybe it'll be another breakfast, but I want to be sure that everyone feels as comfortable as possible that the massing is appropriate, and that we balance that financial formula so you get either a free garage or as much of a free garage, and with the balance of the massing that you want. And I'm here to solve it. And we have the added benefit that would be a huge economic benefit to the city of Coral Gables in taxes, in revenue, and economic viability and vitality for Miracle Mile. If we can get an affirmative vote at the commission meeting next Tuesday, because we have a corporate headquarters that would like to go be on Miracle Mile, be in the Coral Gables City Center, but they have to, as much as they want to, because of their deadlines, they would have to make a decision to go elsewhere if we can't get a positive answer next Tuesday. So it's really important for the city. Yes, it's important for us because it makes it viable, but it's a win-win for everyone concerned. And I want to do the right thing by the city, and I want to address all your concerns. If any questions that come up between now and next Tuesday, I want to be available to resolve those questions so you all feel comfortable with it.
Well, I'd like to ask all
particularly
of you one
Commissioner
thing.
Keon, and particularly you,
Is
Commissioner
that when you
Lago.
give us papers, I really would like, and I wear glasses, I really would like to be able to read the fine print.
Thank you.
So I want to step back a little. I know we've kind of discussed a lot of points, but just going back to the 4 points again. Spaces for garage spaces, the size, massing, ownership structure, financing. So if the commission decides to, or can't make a decision today, but if we go forward in further discussions, the ownership structure is a concern that we've discussed in the past, and I just want to kind of take that off the table. It sounds like we're discussing massing right now, and that's the big component. And the ownership structure is something that is joint ownership through a vertical subdivision. So would it be fair to say that that's something that we can take off the table?
I mean, from a business perspective, if you tell me, I really don't know, nor understand, nor have ever worked with that. So I'm relying on you to talk to me about that. I don't know.
Okay.
It would be important for us at this point in time that we need to focus on one proposal. And the
If you don't mind, I just wanted to be able to go through, have him, if you don't mind finishing.
oh, sorry, I didn't know you were going.
Yeah. And so the other component we discussed is the financing. The city would have to contribute or pay debt service related to it. And so this was a concern to the commission before, where the commission has narrowed down to these 2 options. Well, we have narrowed down to these 2 options because financing was no longer required by the city. So we can go back into it and look at where we are today. And if we were to continue our garage structure as is today, any gravy over and beyond that from building something, we can use that as our potential negotiation opportunity to bring down the size of the project. We can do that for that
To
fine.
use the net proceeds
Right.
and apply, rather than financing, right? To
Correct.
apply any net proceeds
Correct.
towards
Yes, I'm sorry, I
whatever
wasn't clear.
program brings
Yes.
down the massing.
Yes.
It reduces their cost.
Can I ask you a quick
So it
question?
wouldn't be a debt financing, we wouldn't be going to the obtaining debt, it would be a payment to them based on a participation over and beyond what we make today. And fairly escalated, what Kevin projects, what the garage will produce today and tomorrow and for however many years it can last.
We can make it, it's really a TIF agreement in a different bottle.
So that covers the
Daily
financing
percentage.
side, and we can go over the ownership and, but those two items covered. So just to get to the point, the size, the massing of the project is attributed to the square footage of the use and the parking. So really, right now, we've narrowed it down to those two concerns. And Commissioner Keon, related to the ownership, I can discuss that with you, but, I'll tell you that from a 99-year lease perspective, and a ownership perspective, I consider it pretty much a very similar process. The difference is at the end of 99 years, the option the city has to retake a property, and I don't want to get into the details of this. Would we take a property over if it's leased to somebody? We'd probably release it to them again.
Okay.
So it's in my opinion, it's a psychological number where
What looks better in the books in regards to finance or financials? I just want to ask you.
I don't care about what looks.
What?
We can
I
have
want
your,
to know what really works.
So the question.
Well, no,
would-
the reason why I ask is because I think it's important when you want to maintain your AAA bond rating status, when you want to go out to hopefully finance other projects.
So I would say from a debt service perspective, if you're getting proceeds up front and you don't have to take money out, I would say that sounds like an opportunity. Now, you are receiving rental income over time, and you can use that rental income to offset any debt, and so there's that benefit. But if you were to just take I guess what I'm trying to say, if you were to take 99 years and you were to find a value of what that is today versus a sale, the numbers would be pretty much equivalent.
No, my question, I understand that. My question was just what looks better in regards to our own city finances, our financials, our documents, what we are. That we have the property on a portfolio on a 99-year lease, or that we've sold the property. We got those what do you think puts the city in a better financial?
I think it's
Yeah,
6 and 1
No,
half. a dozen the
I'm
other.
asking the question because if
Yeah, it could, depending on the project itself. So if we're receiving, $1 million in rental revenue, but now they don't have the means for, I don't know how we would finance it in that case. We'd have to take out debt to finance it to offset that $1 million in rental income.
Just to add to the vertical subdivision, and definitely I can give information to Leonard so he can meet with you, but it is a newer
Right.
animal.
Right.
So like everything, like condominiums got corrected over time in the Florida legislature, this will be one of those. It has been created because of that effect, so there's good to that. But one thing that you have to, he did say something, but I want you to clearly understand it. The good and the bad is we will always be tied with the owner of that other parcel. So in 40 years, because I keep on hearing this conversation on when our cars fly and no one needs a parking garage.
Jetsons. Yeah.
Exactly, when we're finally living in the Jetsons era, and we all want to figure out what we're going to do, it's a joint decision, just like if they want to change what's going on. So there's good and bad to it. I do think that, thank God it's an animal that's already created, so it does give us a flexible option that didn't exist a year ago.
I could easily say that I have a magic pen here, a Sharpie. If you want to take it and mark up these numbers.
Take him to breakfast, take his pen.
make sure you pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. So that brings us down to just, really in order to adjust the massing of this project, it's really down to spaces and FAR, but, I'm kind of taking back, I want to make sure I'm clear here. We had this discussion about 750.
And I'd also like to see, when you talk about massing, I'd like to see the building properly articulated in the sense of, I don't want it to just be a wall. I mean, right now it looks like a project from Lejeune all the way to Ponce, just one giant wall.
Right.
I mean, if you are, let's say, south of this building in an office, which I sometimes, let's say, for example, you're in the police safety building, the current public building, there's a police station, and you're sitting in a building there, you will no longer be able to see past these buildings, which is a problem. And that's something that I've encountered because I've given it thought while I sat in somebody's office looking, and I imagined the buildings there. You wouldn't be able to see north of these buildings. I don't know if you've given it some thought, but that's a big issue for me.
To your point.
It would be unbroken. It would be a wall.
To your point, Commissioner Lago, G4 is the longer site, but the podium is significantly lower. And the podium is very similar to what I would say you're dealing with there today, except that, and then the podium steps back significantly with the residential tower. I'm speaking on behalf of the developer, speaking on behalf of my commitment to the city also as putting my resident hat on, that there's a solution here we had. We just need to focus our energies on one, and we have the solution from the staff for the parking in option one. I'm responding to the mayor, I'm responding to the other members of the commission, and I am throwing myself at the mercy of the commission, so to speak, to have the opportunity to work on that massing for option one, where we will make sure the city is in a stronger financial position with a brand new garage and stronger financial position because we are only talking about if we have to get across the goal line with the massing, only talking about an increment of the additional dollars that we're bringing to the table in taxing or in the garage revenue. That's what we're talking about. It really is, just like we've done in other municipalities and with the county, a tax incentive financing scenario, or vis-a-vis the garage. You won't have to go out to market for this. This is an elegant solution, and it would only be an increment because the commission's saying it has to be consistent with the aesthetics of the city of Coral Gables, and this is what we need. Well, to accomplish that, we can do a lot of things aesthetically to work with you guys, but ultimately it's going to pull horsepower out of the project, and then we can just open our books to your staff, and they can look at that budget, and they can see that we're not hiding the ball, and that ultimately, if this is the cost of the garage and the paseo, we just need this help with the increment that we're bringing to the table. If the commission would allow us that opportunity and the direction to concentrate our energies there, that's what we would like to do.
What's the existing parking spaces in the garages now between the two of them?
You have an absolute number of 626 spaces.
You know what? I got to tell you, this drives me nuts. You've had the parking director tell you that our parking needs are growing at a particular rate. What did you say? What was the rate that they're growing at annually?
In the 2013 study, they projected 101 by 2018 growth in the hourly demand. The actual number wound up being 191. So we're growing faster.
So you're getting parking spaces. You're building a new garage with fewer parking spaces than what you have today that are under the purview of the parking department.
That's not true.
Can you
Yeah,
address
it is.
No, it's not. Because you just added that last part of under the purview of the parking department.
Absolutely, they're under. I want them under the. It's a public parking garage.
But you can want
that
it.
is our
you can
public
want
parking
it that way.
garage.
You can want it that way. I understand that. That's your prerogative. But from a supply and demand perspective, from looking at studies, we would have 1,000 parking spaces night and weekend. And that's when that demand has been tested based on the data that I've seen. And we keep ignoring that 1,000 as if it's only 620.
The largest growth between 2013 and 2018 was at noon.
Right.
Was it noon? Noon.
At which the peak is like 5
At the
something.
noon. At noon.
At which the peak is still in the 500s.
So you currently have 627, if I'm doing the math right. 626, sorry.
And you're giving us 620.
620. Now, something that you need to think about, we've also talked about 100 spaces going elsewhere with basically, so they would get to 720. And at night.
Where else?
To be honest with you, there's a lot of discussions on, is there another building, a privately owned building where it could be part of our development and we can put it in there? Those are things that should be discussed, but honestly, the idea, and this is Kevin reminding us, is that we would only agree to this if those 100 showed up somewhere else. 1, 2, and
Correct.
now you have 300. So I just want you to look at it that way. The other thing that I want to be clear to you guys is we have conveyed to the developer that we are not looking at these parking garages to deal with all of our parking needs.
No.
So if that's different, the commission needs to
Yeah.
correct that.
But
The other thing is there's 627. How many of the 627 are you unable to use right now?
Well, the roof of garage 4
That matters.
is typically
Yes.
empty. But
How many are on the roof?
40 of them are occupied by city employees, so I would say most of,
Now the 627 is at
100
probably 70 to 80 spaces.
It's 115 on the roof.
So now what you actually have right now is 550.
so where are you going to put those people?
115? They're 345.
There's nobody there now.
That's still to be negotiated. The concept of relocating them in another facility that works for our system is the concept that's.
And
gonna
where is that? Is this buying a new building?
That has
What,
not,
what is it? I mean, I'm going to tell you, having lived downtown for the last year, at night, you can go into any number of parking spaces, and all over the city, there is more than adequate demand for parking in the buildings that exist in the downtown that are empty at night if we would go to work and talk with those people. So I'm not really, right, and I'm
Why do you
not
want more?
concerned about what the nighttime parking is. I'm concerned about the daytime parking,
and that's where our biggest growth has been.
is in daytime parking.
I want to make just one comment about the 1,000. Yes, we get the extra supply at night, which I love. I love the extra supply. But as part of the negotiation to get to 620, the revenue actually doesn't come to the city for the extra spaces.
All the closures you showed us in these two garages previously were at night, right?
In these two garages this
Yes.
summer, all the closures were at night. The peak daytime occupancy was 251 in garage 1, which means
You're going to
there
have
was roughly
400 in garage 1. You're going to have 400
And you
spaces
also
in
made a
garage.
comment there about Kevin, you made a comment in regards to nighttime parking, that we wouldn't get the revenue.
from the extra spaces.
Right.
That
I thought
we get the supply.
the developer,
They're open to the
wait, didn't the
public.
developer
Because if
clearly
we-
state at the last meeting that they would give?
That was at
It went up from
577.
Now we can, this is how we got from 577 to 620.
So you are getting, what you're getting is from 577 to 620. Now we
All
own
day.
620. From 620 to 1,000, we do not own.
We have, so basically they're gonna be running a parallel parking garage structure, correct?
But we're not.
But they're
afraid
gonna
of
be charging,
competition.
are we gonna tell them, listen, you can't undercut us by 25 cents?
There are no private facilities that undercut us.
They're all more than we are.
No, but I'm saying, listen, at the end of the day,
They're all more than we are.
But that could be, to be honest,
again, it's just a question. I mean, it could
Potentially, yes,
happen,
it could.
it could happen.
but that should be a covenant in our agreement. That's a very
Right.
good point.
Sure, we can solve for that.
It has to be something where we're regulating what they're charging.
We can solve for that. There's no issue with that whatsoever. It is a valid point,
Yeah,
but
but
we
you
can
know-
solve for that.
Before this comes back, you have to have solid numbers on what the parking needs are and be able to defend them.
I would like to pose the
If we're going to
following.
make a decision based on those numbers.
Commissioner, we've looked at this, and we have two options on the table. One with the 750, and one that provides brand-new spaces and moving 400 into G1, which is what the study shows is the most important garage in the city. And a space in G1 is worth substantially more than a space in G4. In fact, G4 doesn't even have a functioning roof, and that garage has never closed. Has G4 even closed at night before?
Yes.
How many?
You know what? I think the elevator is a bigger issue than the roof.
So we have a scenario where we're talking about an absolute number. We keep talking about an absolute number, but what you have is a difference between an absolute number and the effective number. And we have garages where we've been told repeatedly the roofs don't work, the garages are old, they're decrepit, there are a lot of different adjectives that have been used. I have transcripts, the adjectives are fantastic. But at the end of the day, we're going to move hard evidence, 400 spaces into G1, which is where you need them. At night, between G1 and G4, the increase has been at night. In the daytime, it's been down. The occupancy at peak, I'm going to use the right phrase.
Do not look at a single.
I understand. I know, but we're solving for 1 and 4. If the commission tells us to solve for the whole CBD, we're going to have a different discussion. If we look at 1 and 4, the occupancy at peak time, I want to make sure I'm using the right word. The occupancy at peak time between 2013 and 2018 went down 24%. Notwithstanding, there could be a number of reasons why that happened. The garage is old. People don't want to park on the roof. So what we're going to do is replace that inventory with brand new spaces. And at night, give you the 1,000 we need. We identified the 95 permit parkers in G1. We have met, we've worked hard with staff, and we have an option on the table that we can condition moving forward with option 1 based on that solution for those 95 permit parkers just for the daytime. And in those permit parkers, we will find a solution for. If we don't, then it's up to the commission to deny that if they so choose. So it will only allow us to focus we're only asking for direction to focus our energies right now on option 1 in a way where we can provide you the parking you need according to your staff, in a way where we can respond to you to get the demand you need in no financing. And if that's not possible, we're only talking about taking an increment of what we would add and increase to the pie. And this is something that's done in a number of municipalities because they run against the same problems the city of Coral Gables is running into today with this garage, that it ran into 10 years ago with this garage, that it ran into 15 years ago with this garage, because the private developer can't give the city what it wants 100% on the dollar. But in the increment of what we're providing, there is extra pie that we can share. And that's how every municipality does it in South Florida. I am very happy to bring that to the table if the commission would allow us to, and use that to significantly improve the massing for the city.
Well, to the manager, could you figure out what we need for parking before we have another discussion on this?
Yes,
From the city's viewpoint,
yes.
what do we need for parking?
We looked at option number 1
Okay.
with the 620, and we looked at moving, we are looking at moving those 100 cars someplace else. And we have various
I
options.
don't want to know someplace else. I want to know where. I don't know someplace else.
We're going to
We
condition
have various
it.
options right
Coverland.
now, but I don't think
I don't know
we're
where it
able
is.
to, I don't think we, if we have some way of, if we can move forward with one of the options, I think we can try to develop that option much better and get, and look for actual places that we've discussed various options about those 100 cars. And various options are on the table, but not 100%. So
You need to have them on the table for 100% for me.
I understand. If we move forward, one of the things that we talked about was the FAR, and the FAR based on, let's say, let's look at square footage, which is going to pay for the parking garage. We either at 3.5 we pay for the entire parking garage. At 5.3, at 5 point something, we get the garage is paid for by the developer. That's a sliding scale, right?
I understand that. I mean, and some of my colleagues are perfectly fine with the massing of the building. I'm not. I have a simple question, and this is I don't know if this has already been covered. Has the developer sat down with Ramon Trias and his team to have an in-depth discussion about what the future of this corridor in the city of Coral Gables should look like, and whether this building fits into the context of what we're looking for? Because at the end of the day, I mean, he's our director of zoning, and he's the one that has planning. Excuse me, he's the one that has. Thank you for the correction, Commissioner. It's been a long day. He's the one. He's started with you this morning, and we're going to end the day with you.
It's not a terrible day.
No, it's okay. So the question is, I like to have Mr. Trias at least give me his opinion after reviewing the project a little bit more in depth.
Sure.
Maybe provide some ideas on how to break up the building. Maybe give us his impression on what we can do.
But I'm going to latch on to that comment.
Can I just make a point of clarification, just for all of you, because Madam City Attorney, I just want to make sure. There's an ask on the table for you guys, which I know you can't vote on, to only go with option 1. But if I am correct, the developer can also just come to us tomorrow and say, we are only moving with option 1.
Certainly.
Okay, so just, you don't
Certainly, but the
necessarily have to
commission-
guide them. They can take their information today and pick to stick with one option, which may be better for them.
They can, and the commission can generally, the 3 members that are here, state that they wish to see option 1 on Tuesday.
Yeah, well, I mean, option 1 is the one that includes the office building and the residential tower.
Right.
So it continues with the same thing like I mentioned before, which is why I brought up Mr. Trias. You have a wall that runs a span, and I hate to say it.
So to your point, and this is an important question. Because of your stated concern about the wall and visibility from the south or whatever direction, do you like option 2 better? I'm not saying you like it enough to approve it, but do you like it better?
I do.
Because you don't have the wall on one block, right?
I do.
There is a wall. From that perspective.
And that's a great point.
I think it's important for
I do.
everybody to
I
understand
do. But obviously, then we got to talk about how that affects the finances of the actual project.
And we still have a garage, it's still the same because you have a garage, a parking tower.
That's right. As a matter of fact, I found it very interesting that when you look at the city benefits, the actual cash flow actually goes up. When you talk about this issue, so you're talking about when you have the garage one and the residential tower, you're talking about $117 million in city benefits. When you look at it without the actual, it goes up to 120 million. So again, but there's obviously
Just
other
so
things in play.
everybody kind of can visualize, if there was a garage only a garage with ground floor retail on the garage one site, the building would look substantially similar to the museum garage. The museum garage is 105 feet at the top of the parapet wall. This would be about the same, maybe a little bit less. 589, but the footprint at garage one is much larger.
Yeah,
So you're saying it would be taller?
look, we, in our numbers, show that this garage with this footprint
I
can
mean, how
hold
wouldn't it be taller?
100 spaces per floor.
Sorry, if museum garage is 589 and has a bigger footprint.
No. Garage one site has a bigger footprint.
Okay.
And we've had preliminary designs drawn within the footprint of the garage one site that show
I thought you said the
750
opposite.
to 800.
Thank you.
But that building, garage one would still require, even if you don't put the cake top, it would still require that the actual structure cantilever over on the alley along with Andalusia.
That's a requirement to have the office tower. If it's just a garage, then you have a much.
About 5 feet, Commissioner. We're doing that also in parking garage 7 because of the efficiency of the parking.
Okay, that was my next question. Does that affect, the efficiency of the actual parking garage structure?
A little bit, a few extra square feet per space. It's not a significant cost. I mean, it is probably $1,000 a space, additional cost, but it's not overall a significant.
5-foot cantilever would not be something that we could not live with.
Folks, no disrespect, but I gotta move on.
Yep.
Okay, it's 5 o'clock. We thank you all. We're going to take the direction to work on the massing and deliver an office tower to the city and address all the concerns you raised today so that we can, on the 25th, come back for you on a conditioned term sheet with any condition that is volunteer within reason from the commission.
Fair. The developer has the right to bring it on the 25th if that's how they wish to proceed, knowing that anything longer than that would require an extension from the manager.
On option 2 that you have there, that's a 10-story building? Is that what you're talking
The option 2 parking garage is
10-story building.
you have it there? Yeah, it's going to be an 8 or 9-story building, that's correct. A floor of retail and 8 to 9,
So it's 10 floors.
as per the rendering, it's a floor of
that is
retail and 8 to 9 floors of parking.
9 floors of parking and a floor of retail.
750 spaces, correct.
Actually like that building better.
Well, great.
Will you place it on the agenda? Will you have it placed on the agenda?
Yeah, so we're going to add this to the agenda.
So in
wish to
option 2,
go
it's only
forward, they have the
residential,
right to-
there's no office building. Is that the difference between 2 and 4?
Thank you.
Is that there's no office building?
Correct. That's the difference.
How many square feet of office are coming online?